Hello, I'm Lisa Loomis with Mad River Valley TV, and with me today in our studios is Waitsfield dairy farmer Elwin Neill, and we're here to talk about the current state of dairy farming in the valley and beyond. Elwin, thanks for coming.
Hi, Lisa. How are you today?
Rainy.
Yes, it is.
I'm actually glad it rained because I knew you were going to bail on
yeah,
me
right.
if
Yeah,
it was
I
good
wasn't
hay
baling
weather.
hay today, so.
So tell me a little bit about your family farm.
Well, it's a lot of people know where it is on the North Road in Waitsfield. It's on the back side of the river. A lot of people are familiar with the Mad River Greenway. That part of that is on the Neill farm. My dad bought the original farm in 1950, and he, in progressive years, we've purchased more land. We consumed the ag land of the Messer farm. We've consumed the ag land of what used to be Dan Bisbee's farm. Part of the Hartshorn farm, part of what used to be the Armstrong farm by the covered bridge. And we also leased some land. We leased some pasture land. We also leased some meadowland from Ren Compere here in the village, and we've done that for several years. We rented that from her dad, for years and years, and we still fortunate to still have that land. Our herd consists of registered Holsteins. We have probably have about 160, 70 head total. Have somewhere around an 80 cow milking herd. Try to milk around 70 cows all the time. Barn ties 72. Try to keep it full. It's kind of like somebody with a motel. They want to keep all their beds full, so we want to keep all the stalls full of productive cows. My dad passed away a couple years ago, and my son Forrest farms with me now. He's at the farm helping out. We also have some other part-time help, and Angela, my wife, does the bookkeeping, also helps out on the farm when she can, and Forrest's girlfriend Allison also helps out on the farm from time to time. Over the years, we've tried to diversify a little bit. My dad kind of sort of did it anyway. He always did some logging. We have a lot of woodland. He always cut timber. We had in our registered cattle, we sell those from time to time for breeding stock. We've had them go all over the world, all over the country. Now we're into doing some other diversification. We do a little bit of custom work. We have for a few years.
What's custom work?
We go out and do some tillage work or baling work or some sort of machinery work for other people that don't have the equipment. Some people that might have some beef cows but don't have equipment may have excuse me, other other things like that. We also we got into some vegetables in the past few years. We do that some. We do some sweet corn. We do some pumpkins. And Allison has also expanded her gardens. We're in hopes to expand that in the future. Years ago, my dad used to do quite a bit of poultry at one time. Actually, the second floor in the barn was home to 1,200 laying hens at one time.
Wow.
And he used to raise broilers for the grain company at one time. He used to house like 3,000 broilers in there. But that kind of went by the wayside, kind of focused on dairy, and then we're kind of going back to doing some of the other things.
How are your chickens and turkeys doing?
Well, they're doing well. They're
Yeah.
really doing well. We don't have a huge number, but it's kind of a trial balloon. We're going to see how it goes, see what the demand is. We've also, I think we're going to be getting our own meat label so we can market that. We also have some steers started, and we may be doing some retailing of our own beef.
So is this diversification in response partially to the milk price crisis? And I mean, was this in the works anyway?
We had talked about it as something we thought we'd try to do, and we're looking at it maybe more seriously because of the milk price. It's as you hear in the news, of course, the milk price isn't good at all. And
Well, can you explain the process of how milk is weighed, how you're compensated?
Sure. Our milk is picked up every other day, as is every other farm that's producing milk. Or if they produce a lot of milk, they're picked up every day. It's sold by the hundredweight. We get paid so much a hundredweight for our milk. Right now, a year ago we were close to $10 a hundredweight more than what we're getting paid right now. May pay price, Boston blend price was $12.18.
May pay?
Yeah, the
price paid for May.
Yeah,
okay.
The price paid for May milk at the Boston blend price, and that's a blend of Class 1, Class 3, Class 4. They figure that price on. Class 1 price is actually higher, but Class 1 utilization is lower. Is a lower percentage of the milk, so they blend the price, and you get paid on the blend price because your milk isn't totally utilized for Class 1 milk. So
you're paid not by the hauler, but by some other entity?
No, we're paid by Agrimark, the co-op that we belong to. We have a milk contract with them. Our milk goes to them exclusively, and we get paid, like I said, the Boston blend price of $12. That was what the May price was $12.18. It got down as low in February, March, April, got down to as low as $11.50. And then you can figure at least $1 a hundredweight off from that goes for hauling and for dues and promotion that's taken out of your check. So, we've been operating on $10.50 milk, $10.50 milk.
And that's $10 less than it was a year ago?
At least, yeah, close to $10. Our February, we get paid twice a month. We get paid, we get 2 checks. And February is the worst month. February is a short month that has shorter pickups, and it's just because there's less days in the month. Those are the smallest checks for your pay. And our one February check was $10,000 less than it was a year ago.
Wow.
So do the math times 12.
That's painful. So how are you staying in business?
Well, we're fortunate. We have no debt load. People that are carrying debt load are in a real bind. We have cut back on, we have just cut back on every non-essential thing that we feel we can get by without. We cut back on our labor. We cut back on a lot of input costs.
Wait, can I just interrupt you right there?
Yeah.
Isn't there a very finite chain of events that happens from the cows coming in, the milk? I'm not clear what you can cut back. I mean, it all has to be done according to certain standards, and
yes,
it's not like you can turn the heat down in the barn, is it? I mean,
no.
Okay.
But you do. There are things that you might not carry as much semen inventory. You would carry less inventory of that. You would carry less inventory of supplies that you might otherwise carry. You would look at be very specific about your nutrient requirements for land and planting in the spring. We'd utilize the nutrients we had on the farm, basically the manure. We're going to probably try to grow our corn this year with just manure and no commercial fertilizer. We look at the nutrients that the feed level of the cows. We try not to. And it's been a real juggling act to maintain production and not jeopardize the nutrients of the nutrient level of the feed for the cows, plus utilize as much of the high quality roughage as we can. That's what we did this past spring when milk price really dropped. I had some very high quality feed left. I had saved it. I was anticipating that this was going to happen. We saved that feed. And we utilized that feed and just supplemented it in place on grain or purchased feeds.
So this is very micromanagement level of how you're tending the cows.
Yeah. On the edge all the time. Every day you are just
really.
You're watching your production. You're watching what stage of lactation your cows are. The high producing cows, the cows that are they have just calved, the ones that are in the higher production, we have taken the route that we do not scrimp on those cows at all, because if you do, they won't produce on the curve on the tail end. And cows that are out there 200 days or more, you can get by with less grain. You can get by sometimes with no grain. They will consume enough roughage to maintain the production they're at. And we found this winter, and we found that these cows, when they get cut back on grain, they consume an incredible amount of really high quality roughage. They just are, they will eat their way into production at the level they were if they have high quality roughage and make up for the grain that they lost. And that's one of the big things that we got through. We used to get a load of grain and it would run us 12 to 14 days. We're running that load of grain out to 22 to 23 days.
How much does a load
now.
of grain cost?
$3,400-$3,500.
Really? And what is it? A truck?
Comes in, it's bulk. We have a dual feed that we feed our cows. One feed is fed in the bunk outside. The cows go out every day, all year round, and they consume a mix, forage mix out there with grain included, roughage and grain included. They have free choice round bales outside. It's a long stem, kind of like silage, and they consume that. And then in the barn, they're top dressed with a pellet grain according to production. And they also get round bale again inside, a high quality round bale inside again. But we're looking at energy, protein, and we're trying to balance every field, every lot, every cutting of hay that we take off of round bales is sampled, tested. We know exactly what the energy is. We know what the protein is. We know what the digestible nutrients are. We also know what the sugars are.
Do you do that, or do you send it out somewhere?
We have two feed companies, two nutritional feed companies that we work with. We have both of them test the same lots so that we really know what we're feeding the cows. And we go from lot to lot depending on what we need for a nutrient requirement of the cow.
And you're able to, I mean, you can actually affect some savings in your operations.
We can affect huge savings by doing that. Huge savings. It's, anybody that's in the business has got to do that. I don't care if they're organic, if they're conventional, but they've got to do that. The more high quality roughage that you can grow on the farm is going to be the key to survival. It's got to be.
You mentioned when we were talking on the phone prior to this today that a lot of dairy farmers are in debt, and they're in debt to the bank, and the bank at some point has a bigger investment in keeping them going than not.
Yep. That's correct.
Tell me a little more about, anecdotally, and I don't want to hear anybody's sad stories by name, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's, many of the suppliers that come and talk, some of the grain people that talk, I was on the phone yesterday with one of Agrimark's people down there, communications guy. He just talks with, industry all across the country. I was talking with one of my feed suppliers here a little while ago. The western farms, the western, out west California, and some of the other western farms are, their average size, like in California, it's 1,000 cows. Vermont averages somewhere around 100 cows per herd. And those herds in California have lost, and in some of the other western states have lost their ability to borrow any more money. They have such a huge debt load per cow that the banks have shut those farms off from any more financing. So that means that, and the rumor that I heard was that there's somewhere in the vicinity of over 200 farms affected. Some of those cows will go out of the marketplace. They will go out of production. Some of them will probably go to other farms. But the total number of cows is between 400,000 and 500,000 cows that are affected. California, of course, has, they have very high milk production. They have a lot of huge herds, but they also have a water problem. You're going to see that become a factor in the U.S. national milk production. I believe it'll happen in the near future because the availability of water. I think you'll see the availability of water become a factor in vegetable growth and what you can get in the east, from California vegetable growers. I think it's going to be huge. I think any of the western states that depend on irrigation, any of the western states that depend on, water or purchased water or water rights on land and stuff, I think it's going to start to have an effect on not only crop production, human consumption foods, but I think it's going to have an effect on milk production. That being said, the East and the rest of the country is not immune to that same scenario of being in debt, so that some banks, some lenders, and it's not only just banks, there's other farm lenders out there, that those people that are in so far, they probably have maxed out on their debt load per cow. Some are big enough that they do have trouble getting more financing, but some of the banks probably feel, or their lending institutions feel, that they are in so far and they are so big that they cannot afford to, it's like
Call
Wall
the
Street,
note, right.
can't afford to fail.
Yeah. So what happens? So you mentioned before we started that it cost an estimated $24.70 per hundredweight
That's what the USDA economic
to create
right.
milk.
That's what the USDA economic research came up with, a number of per hundredweight to give a farm family pay, and that's what really the cost of production. That's what they felt the real cost of production was. But factored into that is like, family labor that wasn't charged out, the farmer's labor that wasn't charged out, other volunteer labor, other things that didn't get charged, didn't get put into it, that they put into that factor. I mean, that would be considering like, the farmer getting paid, all his family getting paid, other things getting paid that, you wouldn't normally figure into that. I've served on the Farm Service Agency Committee up until the first of the year, in the Chittenden, Washington County one. And, it's made up of farmers and some USDA people. And we would sit around the table and talk about, what a lot of them felt that their cost of production was.
Yeah.
Or what they felt they had to have, to function. And they were in the $18.50 range just to, meet all of their expenses and meet,
and you're being
meet their
paid
needs.
$10, $11, $12.
Yeah, some people are hurting. I have heard horror stories of, farms in Vermont that have just, borrowed huge sums of money just to keep operating. And
So is there no federal subsidy anymore, or does the price reflect that?
You have the MILC program, and they pay, depending on how far the milk price drops, also what the feed indicator is, or what the feed costs are on that's based out of the Chicago Board of Trade. So they take that factor. That's why the MILC payments are 2 months behind, because they take what the milk price was, and then they got to factor in the cost of production,
right.
the feed price into the production, and then they establish what that payment is going to be per hundredweight. I think the most it has gotten up to is like around $2 right now. So $2 per hundredweight for the month of, I think our let's see, we're here about June. Yeah, the May pay was somewhere around $2. It was under $2, but it was somewhere around $2, and we just got that transferred. So we're 2 months behind on the federal MILC payment, and then we're a month behind always on your regular milk
pay.
Check. So because
so
you get paid for a month.
So you have to be able to float a fair amount of expenses.
Well,
during any 30 days, right?
If you're established and you're always going, you're always current, because you're operating on last month's milk check for whatever your current pays are. It's really your 30-day. If you have 30-day, and if you keep things current. So
this milk MILC,
MILC.
That's the 2008 legislation.
Yeah, that was the new farm. That was in the new farm bill. And what they're trying to do now, many of the cooperatives around the country, and Agrimart included. In fact, I believe yesterday or today, Paul Johnston, the CEO or president of Agrimart, was meeting with the Ag Secretary, because he was up in the New England area, and they were going to try to get, a bigger payment, something that would help out instantly.
A one-time stimulus or something?
Yeah, but a bigger payment on the milk payment, maybe doubling of it or something. Also, and trying to make it retroactive to when it started in February. But they're also trying to do some sort of milk management, production management, with a guaranteed price with production management. And there's probably 8 or 10 different programs proposed by different groups around the country that are being proposed, and I think they're all going to get together, try to hash it out. But that program, even if everybody agreed tomorrow, that wouldn't happen for 6 months to a year, maybe a year and a half before that could get implemented to really be effective, to guarantee a a cost of production price to farmers.
Are milk prices depressed because of there's too much milk on the market, or are they depressed for another reason?
They are depressed for a few reasons, more than one reason, but one of it is the world economy. We think of, going to the store and getting milk, and did we sell enough milk at a local store or not? But that's a very small component of what really went into, making the milk price good. When milk price was really good,
in the 20s.
Well, yeah, when it was
18, 19,
20 to
bucks.
$24, a year and a half ago. What affected that was the world market. The dollar was cheap. U.S. exports looked really well, to the rest of the world. The world economy was up. Developing nations, other nations could purchase those milk proteins, and that's where the real money is. It's in milk proteins. It's in all the components.
What was
the
that? You're talking about milk
lactose.
protein concentrates, right?
Yep. And that's what the U.S. was exporting. That's why the American, the milk price for everybody was up because that was getting exported. Lactose was getting exported to China to feed the pigs, believe it or not. These milk proteins were going into high protein drinks. They were going into protein supplements in, the other nations. All of the components in the milk were worth more money than ice cream, cheese,
and drinking milk,
and fluid milk. That's and another factor of that is the class 3, class 4 goes into those. Those get processed into the powders, and they get separated. And one of the plants the plant in Middlebury that Agrimart owns separates that, and they have they ship those proteins out of there, and they're like $375 a kilo.
So they're worth more separated than they are to drink.
That's right, way more. And the real money in milk will be in all of those components or in those products that they can develop out of the milk in the future. I don't believe it'll be in.
It's never going to be drinking milk.
It's not going to be in the milk ice cream. It may be in it, and I don't believe it'll be in cheeses. But cheeses affect the milk price quite a bit because, again, you're at protein base. So cheeses, butter, and when when you hear futures on the butter market, futures on the cheese market, then you're talking butter, fat, and protein, which you get paid on components. You don't get paid on fluid anymore. You get paid on components and other solids that are in the milk.
But you get paid on fluids.
No, we don't. We get paid a price on solids. We get paid a price on proteins, and we get paid a price on butterfat, and
it still only equals 12.18
right.
per 100 weight.
Yeah, because those prices are so depressed on the world market that, and the cheese market and the butter market are down, that the protein and butterfat price that we get paid is way down. At one time, here's an example of how important that was in the pricing scheme to dairy farmers. At the peak of the pricing, protein was $4 and something a pound. So we're very conscious about how our cows test. We want to have a high butterfat, we want to have a high protein, but yet we want to maintain, milk production. So at one point when I was working with my nutritional guys, 1/100th, get this, 1/100th of a point, or 1/100th of a point on protein was the equivalent of $450 a month in our milk check.
Wow.
So if and at that time we were running, I think the base average out of Boston is like 3% or 3.05%. We were running a 3.34 on our cows, and it was the difference of about $4,000 in our milk check a month.
And that was at last year's prices.
At peak. That was at like a year and a half ago at peak. And then butterfat was less per pound, but butterfat was up because the butter market was good. And it was just another component, and those exports were good.
So with the global economy still depressed, is there a solution for you guys?
Well,
we were talking a little bit about tariffs earlier, and you were telling me a little bit about the
Yeah,
milk
they've
protein
been.
concentrate.
Yeah, some of the people think that they imported too many milk protein concentrates, from overseas into this country, and that helped depress the price. But, I was talking with the Agrimark, fella yesterday, and he said that, it's worldwide. He said, the European market's depressed, and they have a quoted system, and they're depressed over there. Their milk price, their milk market's depressed over there. Yes, it probably had some effect. Is it the effect that, made the price go down? Probably not. Overproduction is probably one of the things, but yet, see, overproduction for the demand is, but a year and a half ago, the demand was there because the dollar was cheap, the
Right.
dollar got stronger, and then those dairy products didn't look as good on the world market as it did a while before that. So, yeah, the demand dropped worldwide, not necessarily because the dollar got stronger, but the world economy dropped.
Right.
So there probably wasn't enough production at that point in time, but there's overproduction now. The Cooperative Working Together is a program where all the cooperatives around the country have gotten together. We pay dues into that. They have a super majority now of all the dairy farms in the country. They have like 67, 68% of all the dairy farms signed up to that. And they have a fund. And what they do is herd purchases or herd buyouts. And what you do, you put a bid in, so much per hundredweight that you would sell your cows for. Those cows have to go to beef. The new program, one of the new programs of the last program that they had out, they also brought bred heifers, which were, heifers that were going to come into the milk string that had never
Do you
milked
mean
before.
the one in the late 80s? That first
No.
one? Or
No,
a
no,
different
no,
herd
no,
buyout?
no.
You mean-
This is a different
new
buyout.
one.
This
Okay.
is a new buyout. This is not government sponsored. This is a cooperative. It's something that's paid for by dairy farmers. It's not paid
Huh,
for by the government.
Really? But paid for by these co-ops
Yeah, it's paid
themselves?
for, because we have a deduction out of our milk check. Our so much per hundredweight goes into this fund, and like I said, 67% of all the dairy farmers in the country put into this fund. And actually, when they do one of these buyouts, you can actually see a blip in the price. And what they did, they just took 100,000 cows out of the milk on this last buyout or this last bid process. They've taken 100,000 cows out of the national milk production herd. Plus, they took out bred heifers. In fact, some Vermont herds went out on it too. But there is still probably 300,000 to 400,000 more cows in production right now than the market can handle.
Well, how long does it take to get a cow in and out of production? I mean, so the market can handle 10 cows, and you guys, your co-ops, you have to be constantly shifting cows in and out. I mean, you can't just move a cow in like that, can you?
Well, no. That's the problem, part of the problem. That's why I think some sort of marketing cap or some sort of production cap on each farm might be advantageous, so that you meet a certain production level, or you have an average or a historical production level, you get paid a good price on that. It might be one of the programs, I think, is like 93% of that. You'll get paid the cost of production price for it. Above that, it's less, or you may be, you may have that cap. You may get paid on 100% of what your historical production is, and then anything above that, it'll be a penalty. So there's all kinds of programs they're proposing out there, but some sort of supply management, I believe, is the only way to cure this problem, and to maintain a stable base of milk and maintain a stable base of price. Because what happens now is prices get good, herds expand, there's more milk gets dumped on the
Wow,
market.
that sounds like socialism.
Gets
Milk
more-
socialism.
Well, there's
Well, I mean, right? Because when you say herds expand, that's a tenet of a free market economy, right?
right,
And
right.
milk is pie.
Well, if you let the free market go right now, it'll probably have the same effect, but it may have a devastating effect. You may end up with, if you let the free market go right now, and I don't know, but if that's really a bad thing or not, because I'm positioned well. If I was very selfish, I'm positioned well to weather this because with no debt load, and no overhead really.
A diversification.
And
your son working with you, right?
And a lot of small farms will probably survive better than these larger farms, which got bigger for the reason of spreading more costs over more cows. Spreading the costs over more cows with less employees. But when you get in a situation like this, that doesn't work because you can't get rid of those employees, still get the same amount of work done. Can't you've taxed your system too much, and you've got too much debt load. And then you can get rid of some cows, but cow prices drop when milk prices drop. So in a lot of those cases, those people cannot meet their debt with dispersal or liquidation because
the value of
of everything
right.
is down, and it won't meet what they may have borrowed money on when the milk price was high.
Right. So that's an interesting concept of managing the supply via this giant national network of demand.
A lot of farms just when the milk price is good, they would expand. And those really huge farms can make a lot of money in a very short period of time. But they can also lose a lot of money in a very short period of time. When milk price drops like that, they can just lose.
Yeah.
They can just lose hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. They don't have it.
But so you can keep on keeping on for a while.
Well, in hopes we can keep on keeping on for a while, but I am not going to go into debt to just keep on keeping on. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
From a business standpoint, it just doesn't make sense to do that. And borrowing money to keep your business going is good, and it's good in some senses and in some businesses, and probably is in some dairy businesses if the return is there. But right now, the return is not there. Milk forecasts for through the end of the year don't look strong. They got a projection out there of maybe coming up a dollar in $1 in August, maybe $1 for each month towards the end of the year. I think that's optimistic. If you see a lot of these huge farms crash out in the West, if you see some crash around here, if 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 cows come out of the national milk market, price may rebound. If you see the dollar get cheap, if you see the world economy bounce back, it might bounce back, but it's going to be such a lag time. I think you're going to have 6-month lag time on any program.
On any improvement.
On any improvement, whether it's the world economy, whether it's the dollar, whether it's,
Well, what about you're a conventional farmer.
Yep.
Who incorporates a fair amount of, your grazing techniques and the way you work with your animals. How is it for organic farmers? Is it worse? Is it better?
If you look at the total milk market, I was looking at them for 1 month, and organic milk actually lost more market share in 1 month than conventional milk did. I don't believe it's really any different for them because oversupply, too much milk on the market they are in the same situation probably as conventional farms. They probably aren't as bad. I was talking with a field rep yesterday about that. I was asking him, and he said, some of them have there's 2 or 3 different organic cooperatives that pick milk up, and one of them they're on a month-to-month. They don't know from month to month what their quota is going to be.
Wow.
I know one outfit gave them a lot of them turn out in the spring. They gave them a spring penalty if they made more milk than they did in the last fall. I know he was telling me that they're on whatever their milk production is or whatever it's supposed to be. Anything above that, they're at a 50% penalty.
Wow.
But their input costs are high, even though they graze, even though, but their organic grain is probably twice as much as what my grain is. A lot of their other input costs are high. We use quite a few organic, we use a lot of organic or homeopathic treatments on our cows. But their expenses have gone up just like everyone else's expenses. You know, if it's fuel, if it's labor, if it's bedding costs. Here's an example. Our bedding costs probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, and certainly 3 years ago, our bedding costs were maybe $150 to $200 a month, and it's like $900 a month now.
And what is the bedding?
Bedding is,
in the
sawdust.
stall?
Yeah, it's stall. It's sawdust, what you put under the calves and stuff. We've gone to some alternatives. We use straw some now to supplement it. Mm-hmm. We just have searched to find there is no cheap bedding. And another part of the economy that has affected that is a lot of the mills are putting the sawdust in the wood pellets for stoves. Mm-hmm. And the lumber industry is so bad that a lot of mills have gone out. We used to go, I remember when I was a kid, we used to go, there was 3 or 4 places we could go within 10 miles to get sawdust. Mm-hmm. And, we could go to Waterbury, we could go just down to Moretown, we could go, and then, we could go to Duxbury here back a few years ago. And then I started going over to Bristol to get it. That mill's closed, and we were traveling 92 miles one way up until we started getting dry bag shavings delivered. Mm-hmm. And it was cost effective to have that instead of actually trucking our own sawdust to go 92 miles to get
you're always nimble, right? You're always on your dancing on your feet, moving from event to event. But
we also use dry chopped straw, which is a good buy, which is a good purchase, and we've utilized that, mixing it with with sawdust to supplement our bedding needs.
But so that's how you're surviving. Always watching every aspect of the operation
you got
shifting around.
You got to. We pre-bought fertilizer a year ago. We pre-bought some this year. That market was hugely volatile. A year ago, last December I bought some. The year before that I pre-bought. It was $500 when I bought it. Like urea, it's a nitrogen base. I bought that a year ago for $500 a ton. I bought it this year for $450 a ton, but during the cropping season it got as high as $900. So pre-buying it, I was able to
save 100%.
Yeah, it was saving 100%.
Wow.
And potash is another one that's gone up. There's a huge supply out there, but potash has gone up. That I bought like a year and a half ago for $400 or so. It's in the $1,200 range. It's back down to about $800. It's still at $825.
Do some speculation with that stuff, huh?
Well, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
All of these commodities, even milk, even the grains, all your input costs are all on the commodity market. It's all, you can all buy futures on it. And the future market drives some of these prices. Right. When soybeans were high, when corn was high, a lot of these people bought huge amounts of corn, soybeans on a speculative market, and then the price dropped. They had a huge crop last year. The world price dropped, and the economy went, and they're setting on really expensive soybeans, they're setting on really expensive corn, and the corn price, and they're still setting on 25% of last year's crop.
Wow.
So the price has got to change. Between now and harvest season, I think it's got to, because when harvest season comes, what are they going to do with the new corn crop?
Market,
so,
right.
They just, so those things all affect our operation. You don't think they do. You think, well, geez, he's just milking cows, turning them out, feeding them a little hay. Well, that isn't it anymore. It's just not it. So
we're almost out of time. I thank you very much for coming in.
Well, I hope that I covered things. I had a couple of notes.
No, go ahead.
One of the things I got from the Agrimart guy is, domestic demand is down on milk products. They're working on other products developed out of milk products to enhance that. The cheese markets and other things like that are fairly strong. The production is up, but production has stayed within about 1% from like a year ago. So the national production is fairly steady, but the demand has dropped. So and foreign demand, export demand is down 5 to 10%. So you take 5 to 10%, in drop in exports. It's a huge effect on what farmers get. And one of the high points is we're one of the owners of Cabot. Agrimart is, and Cabot is doing very well. Cabot is steady and actually, has increased their market share some. So people have, we thank you for, the public for being loyal to the Cabot brand, whether it's cheese, whether it's butter, or other Cabot products. It's one of the reasons for having a great product. And the other thing that is increasing actually in the marketplace are other niche cheeses. Some of the privateer cheeses and stuff that. And when I say privateers, a lot of the grocery stores are going and putting their own label on, their name on a lot of cheeses, and probably at a reduced price, but it may be manufactured by one of the major manufacturers. But that is actually increasing a little bit. But other than that, I think we've covered about everything.
Thank you very much.
Or try to have covered everything.
Well, you may have to come back and do it again on another rainy day.
Sure, be glad to.
I'm Lisa Loomis from Mad River Valley TV, and with me today in the studio was Elwin Neill talking about milk prices and the state of dairy farming in Vermont and beyond. Thank you very much.